Hello, Cancer rising to your 2025 yearly forecast. My opinions, my mind, my way of looking at it. I'll talk about some dates here, some narratives, some storylines here for you, and throw in a couple pointers to possibly help you out with a couple things, okay? Let's start off with the beginning of this year, obviously. January 6th, the planet Mars, which has been going backwards, retrograde, as they say in astrology, since the end of 2024, goes backwards into your sign. And this can be difficult. I think you had a hint of what this is back in September and October of 2024. I want you to think about the themes of what Cancer is, how you find comfort, how you find security and safety, how you process emotionally, nurtured, be nurtured, etc. The things that make you feel whole, where the glass is full, okay? A lot of this is up for review here from January and really all the way to mid-April. It's a massive storyline for you, a big transit. So I want you to pay attention, if you haven't already, to what your body is telling you, literally what your physical body is telling you. And as you know, being a moon-ruled person, that there's different stories and moods and ways of expression and feelings that connect to the body. And I think this is one of the major themes here, is to grasp and catch what moods, what certain places connected to your body that might feel stagnant, that might feel low, that might not feel like it's running on all cylinders. Is your energy zapped? Your vitality doesn't feel like it's quite there. And it's to understand possibly the reasons why and to go through the motions to get answers to help you in that kind of thing. In the end, we have our spirit, our energy in this physical body, and we move into the world, and that's how we show ourselves into the world. All of that is under review for you here in the first couple months of the year. It can be extremely challenging. At the same time, though, you can find things that you forgot about. Maybe there is certain things that inside you emotionally that you've been carrying, which you do, not just for yourself, but for others, the tendency to do this or want to do this. Like, you have to see what habits work for you and which ones do not. Here's a chance to push those out, to sweat those ways out of you that do not work anymore, that affect you even physically. But most importantly, your heart and your stomach, right? So I throw in that little thing about cancers about their stomach, but I'm serious about the food thing and nutrition thing too. I think this is a good time to review and look at this stuff, and for you to, if you need guidance, mentor, some help, tests, all that kind of things, to take a look at it. Each one of you is going to be different in this, but most importantly, we want to focus on what vitality is for you and what it can be for you. In the beginning of the year, you have some ways to figure this out. All right, when we get into February, in the middle of all this, the planet Jupiter, which deals with growth and expansion and abundance and optimism, right? This buoyant planet. It's been in the sign of Gemini, the sign that's always before yours, since the second half of 2024, and at the end of the year, it's gone through a revamp process. And this process kind of entered a world, in your world, that deals with isolation and rehabilitation and hiding out in a cave, which I know you're familiar with. I know actually some Cancer people, Cancer risings, who actually don't do this. They don't hide out. They actually avoid hiding out. Now, I'm going to say it varies between each person, but I think this is a theme about what your temple and cave is and how comfortable it is. And when you're there in isolation, you're there needing to be alone, what are the reasons for it? Some know they have to do it because they're highly sensitive. You're highly sensitive people, and depending on where the moon is in your chart, it will define that for you. But some are more highly sensitive than others. They're used to hiding out. They're used to rehabilitating, right? Some don't know how to do it, and they have to figure it out. This has been the theme that's been around. The first week of June, Jupiter starts to move forward in that place all the way till June. I think there is a little bit of an uplifting feeling gradually in this area, but we don't want to underestimate what happens when you're in your cave. If it's sadness and sorrow and having to nurse oneself, do what you have to do. How I started this video with a Mars retrograde happening in your sign, there's multiple factors here that are kind of like hideout, zap energy type of thing. At the same time, where do you get your vitality? Where do you get your energy from? Is it half of the story where you need to be in your cozy cave and then come out to where you feel it's safe and engage with situations or others that can even uplift your vitality? You have to gauge that. It doesn't mean you completely hide out, but if you have to, I totally get it. That will change, by the way, down the line, and we'll get to that. So we're hitting up March, so on and so forth. I don't want to forget something here before I go forward here, because there's an important something two things I want to say here. They have to do with a new and full moon. You're so affected by new and full moons and eclipses that because you're Cancer influence, you might as well start. If you haven't paid attention to this stuff, you got to start paying attention. That's just part of your life, right? Big full moon happens on January 13th here at 24 degrees Cancer. It's tied into that Mars going backwards in your sign and that zapping of energy, possibly the vitality. Something is shown here that you have to deal with. My recommendations to you are to do what water people do, like signs, whatever comforts you. If it's soup, taking a bath, walking in nature with water, etc., listening to water itself, raindrops, go to YouTube and listen to some audio waves types of things to bring you in, things to kind of nurture you and to slowly pour your glass to the top, nothing forced. But this full moon is pretty intense here on January 13th. I'm giving you some ideas to alleviate it. Then when we get to June 25th, that's when the new moon in Cancer will happen at 4 degrees. And that is a whole different something else than the first lunation in the beginning of the year. And I will fill in the blanks there on June here later in the forecast, okay? So when we get to these eclipses that happen in March and into April, they're very important for you because you're affected by the moon as always in lunations. On March 13th, we have a major eclipse that happens in the sign of Virgo. This has to do with how you communicate in your world, your siblings, your immediate surroundings, the community around you, how you're interacting with that, how your brain is functioning there. And I think there's a bunch of ways that you do that. They're under review here, and they will be a theme through the whole year, actually, of how you put thoughts together, how you get your brain together. These are mercurial ideas, things, and how your interactions to those around you, your neighbors, the walk in the park, etc., right? Something needs to go in that area in your life. The way you do it, or certain people that you have been interacting that way. I could see interesting situations happening with possible family members, siblings, etc. These eclipses, the one on March 13th, there's another one on September 21st. They hit this area in your life. And then the one here on September 7th, which happens in the sign of Pisces, this hits another part of your world that has to do with your spiritual life. If you're spiritual, it has to do with like what philosophical code that you stand by, the higher truth that you stand by. It deals with higher learning and education. This is in play this year too. I will follow up on that. I want to mention something else. There's another major eclipse that happens on March 29th that affects your career house and sums up a interesting story that's been going on there for the last year and a half. That career house story will get hints of something here in the middle of summer in the Northern Hemisphere, winter there. I'll get to that. Speaking of that, in the middle of this March-April area, the planet Venus that deals with relationships and love and finances and money and what you value, it is going to be in your career house and then stop and go backwards, retrograde. Just like Mars in the beginning of the year for you, you're going to have this happen. This is so much to deal with, actually. I think the first couple months of the year for you. So I just want to acknowledge that. Venus is going to go backwards there. Mercury, the planet of communication, is going to do the same thing. It's going to go backwards, start in Aries in your career house. They're going to go back and eventually get to that place in your chart that deals with the philosophical code that you stand in, what your truth is, the debating of those truths, what we do to bring in information-wise to maybe possibly incorporate in our truth. You could see a theme here. A lot of times our code and our ethics that we live by filter into what we do for career and reputation. And that is the little story that's kind of hanging around your world there in March into April too. And that is all under review. I gotta say that your career part of your chart is going to be very active this year, for better or worse. And so when it comes to that, you have to pay attention, especially if you're hiding out. Like we talked about at the beginning of this video, it's like the tendency of needing to hide out, or let's say you're forced into a situation where you need to hide out, you can't move. You can't ignore the career part of your chart. In the end, is like you have to think about your go-tos before you, let's say, walk out of the house physically or walk out of your emotional core, is to understand the truth that you stand by, to understand the emotional state that you're in, and to find the ways to regulate it. And there you use your code of what you live by, your philosophical code, your highest truth. You take those things together and then you bring it out into the outside world. That is a process for you to surf a lot of this year. So saying that, we get to this eclipse season in the March and April and May. There's two big planetary bodies in astrology. One is Neptune, that deals with a dissolving over time, illusions, the dream, that kind of thing. It's been in the sign of Pisces for 13 years plus. It's like a long time, and it's going to leave this philosophical higher truth place of your life and move into your career house. And then Saturn does the same thing. It leaves the philosophical higher truth place of your chart, the place of foreign travel, by the way, and how we acquire traveling around long distances. Dreams too, by the way. That leaves and goes into your career house, but only for a brief period of time in the summertime. Eventually in the fall, these two planets that dissolve and construct, right? They want to dissolve, and then Saturn constructs or creates authority and boundaries and forces discipline and work, will go back into the place in your chart that deals with the philosophical code that you stand by. There's a massive reworking going on there for years, and you're going to play a push-pull game there with that in your career place, okay? See how I'm reiterating this to you. Now, June and July are so fascinating to me for you, that considering the push-pull and the difficulties that you start off with the year, you get this like window here, I think. And that planet Jupiter that I talked about earlier, that was in this place in your chart of like hiding out, right? It actually moves into your sign of Cancer in June for a year. It is an amazing transit to start off for you. It's going to go all the way from the summer of 2020 and winter in the southern hemisphere. I got to be real with my people who live all over the world, because I have you guys. But it will be in the sign of Cancer for a year. I think this is one of the best transits for the year for you into 2026, considering the reworking and understanding in the other parts of your world. This will give you energy. I think the vitality and the hiding out that you had to deal with in the beginning of the year, and some of the things you've had to process, they come out. I think if you take care of those things at the beginning of the year, come June and July, you get a hint of what it is to feel like contained, safe, and strong for you to initiate yourself in the world. It's possible some of your vitality comes back, your energy comes back, but you can't just wish upon that stuff. You can wish upon something, but you have to follow through with action. And I think by the time June comes, you'll be able to do some of this. The contemplative partner reworking just happens in the beginning of the year. Jupiter brings abundance, sometimes good fortune. It's a life planet, right? It wants to enhance and push and seek out. that enters your sign of Cancer here in June. Work this, okay? Work the beginning of the year till you can get to this point. If I go back to the new moon that's going to happen here on June 25th that I mentioned earlier, it's actually with the planet Jupiter. And this is a rare period of time, if you want good news, if you want possible some things to work with, it's this period of time from June and July, okay? So I feel good about it. I literally just say the words to you. I feel really good about it. So when we get into July, another big planet, Uranus, that deals with rambunctious and rebellion and unorthodox ways of doing things, surprise, things that come out of the blue, and its purpose is to come and to shock and liberate things of where they are. Now, shock can sound pretty intense for some people, but sometimes liberation and something different is exhilarating, and it actually moves in a place it's been in a place in your world that deals with community that you're involved in and the friends that support your hopes, wishes, and dreams. And it leaves that area temporarily to go into this isolating, rehabilitative place in your life. And so I'm not going to say to go hide out in June and July and August. As a matter of fact, I'm going to say to put yourself out there. But I just want to give you a clue that there's something in that hiding out. You're in your cave, in your temple that you've been doing the isolation, nursing your wounds type of thing. Know that you always have that, okay? And that you can know when to go into that place and then know when to leave. When we get to the second half of the year with Uranus, it's going to go back into your community house, in the place of who your patrons, who are your alliances are, and it's going to show you one little bit more surprise there. And I think it's not, honestly, the transit is pretty good. I don't feel weird about it, or dark about it at all. Unlike the Mars transit that's difficult in the beginning of the year for you and the eclipses, okay? So saying that, that's kind of my thoughts. There's obviously more details to all of this. I want you to always pay attention to where the moon is, new and full moons, and where the eclipses are. We've talked about that. But do the internal salve to your heart here the first part of the year. If you can get through the difficulty of the Mars retrograde transit in your sign and come out with some emotional knowledge and feel grounded in the end, feel replenished, work on the vitality and energy of who you are, your body, redefine that, reanalyze your body, feel where things come from, purge what needs to be gone feeling wise. And mind you, I'm talking about you, but a lot of times with Cancer people, they're someone else on the outside of them is in this process possibly too, right? They're reflecting it back towards you, and you are the one who has to hold the emotional space, right? But how long do you sit in those places? How long do you sit in a place of sadness or confusion, these feelings? Remember, the key part of you being a Cancer is knowing the tools to move through certain emotions and to move forward and progress at the right times. And you're going to be having a chance to revamp how you do this in your life. All right. If you made it this far and you're new here, my name is Nicholas, Sparkles of Gold. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell to know when I go live, which I do all the time. My best gift is working one-on-one with clients. I love doing it. If you're thinking about getting a session with an astrologer, you can check me out. Go to sparklesofgold.com. I love working with people. And I have a big part of my chart that's Cancer-based in one sense. That's very hidden. And so I have a secret connection with you all. I'd love to work with you. You could find that info here in the copy. In the meantime, take care of yourself, okay? Go make yourself a hot cup of tea.